Well, who was the?
Okay, sir, we need to, there might be a lot of other people who want to speak still, so let's wrap it up, okay? Good, but let's wrap it up.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, last question then is.
Go ahead.
Who, was this an independent research or?
The last thing that a purchaser wants to do is not have that fully vetted, because you can buy a pig in a poke if there's an environmental issue. So yes, an outside engineering firm was hired, and the agreement of sale allowed the buyer to walk away from the deal if they
Right.
found anything.
I understand.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Let's continue on this.
Mr. Barrett.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If I could, because I think it lets the residents understand that our typical protocol at Borough Council is 5 minutes, and then we can extend an additional 5 minutes if there's the request. It's not to cut anyone off at all. I think it just keeps with our protocol that we've had existing for a while. So for future appeals, if we could adhere to the 5, does anyone disagree with that? Stick with the 5 minutes, and then if there's more than that? Okay. I think it just gives formality to the meeting and keeps it moving appropriately.
Sure, hi.
Please sign in.
Sign in and then give us your name and address, please.
Thank you. That helps us be able to put your name on the record and have the right spelling of it.
So my name is Dan Schmidt. I live at 1242 Pennsylvania Avenue, which is the corner lot at DeLong, Pennsylvania. And really, I just wanted to echo everything he said, the concerns about the building, the density. You cannot deny that density increases. You're putting 50 houses up there with all the people that would live there. It's going to increase. And what I wanted to present the council with is a petition from the residents of the area opposing the rezoning.
Sure, you can bring that up and we'll mark it. We'll include it in the record.
So it's opposing the rezoning and then, of course, the construction of the houses up there.
Okay, thank you, Dan. We'll mark it R1 for Residence 1. How's that sound? Okay. Okay, is there, oh, I'm sorry, do you already have somebody up there? Okay.
That's all right. I'm Barbara Graff. I live on Arch Street, 1369 Arch.
I'm sorry, what was your name again? I'm sorry.
Barbara.
Barbara?
I live up near the cul-de-sac, and I noticed on your plans that the cul-de-sac pretty much goes away. I should make aware that that's actually the only public parking for that end of Arch Street. There is no public parking, street parking on that end. If you're bringing in a public track for people to come in, where are they going to park? Just a thought. Anyway, I had a conversation with Jim Farnsworth concerning the notices that were supposed to be sent out concerning this meeting. Being on Arch Street, I did not receive any sort of notice.
Yeah, I'm not aware, ma'am, of a notice that needs to go out for this proceeding.
Okay.
This proceeding was advertised in accordance with municipalities' planning code with the letters that I went through before, the newspaper advertisement, and when you have a rezoning, the only specific notice that goes is to the property owner whose property is affected by the rezoning, which in this case would be Rodale.
Okay.
So there are other types of zoning proceedings where neighbors get notices. This is not one of
This
them.
is not one.
Mr. Farnsworth did attempt to notify. He tried to spread it out to.
But that's
I mean,
voluntary.
He stopped at some kind of.
Okay.
Linear
And he also
feet away from the property.
stated that there would be a posting on the realtor sign, and there was not any.
There was
So
a posting on the property itself.
on the where?
I know that it was posted. He took photos of it.
Okay, because nobody on Arch Street that we talked to for the petition was aware of this development going in or this rezoning.
Okay, but people are here and people
Correct.
have signed a petition and everything else, so people
Correct.
know.
It's because we spread the word, not
Okay.
because it was spread by the borough.
All right, no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hold on, let's stay in order. How about the next row? Is there anybody? How about next row behind? So we're 4 rows back now. 5 rows back. Ma'am?
The only thing I'm going to say,
Come on. If you want to say something, you got to come up. Give us your name and address, please.
My name's Linda Kriebel. I live on DeLong. I did receive a notice from the borough about this meeting tonight. And I did check with some of my other neighbors. They did not.
Okay, let's be clear.
Shane, explain that.
I just did.
I don't think they heard you.
Yeah. Mr. Farnsworth voluntarily attempted to notify people. I'm not sure what success he had. The law, the notice that the borough officially gave is the notice that's required by law. Notice to individual property owners for this type of a proceeding isn't necessary, okay? But if Mr. Farnsworth went above and beyond the call of duty, then that's great. And you got a notice, and we have people here, so.
Yeah, and the concern is the traffic.
I understand. I think we've heard.
I know, it's basically everything they said I agree with.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, to the other side of the room. Let's go. First row, anybody?
Yeah, we're all going to talk.
Okay, but you're the second row.
Already got to go.
I know, but there's a young lady in the first row, and I don't know who's who and who's from where. So okay, so now second row. Okay, go ahead.
My name is Jessie O'Donnell. I'm a resident, 1312 Pennsylvania Avenue. A lot of you in the room know who I am. I've been a resident of Emmaus for a long time. First, my question that I don't think was ever answered when it was asked here was, who will be responsible to maintain these walking trails after it's built?
The homeowners association.
Okay. Second, my question is, who will be responsible to maintain the stormwater system once it's built?
The homeowners association, unless the township wants dedication.
In all likelihood, it'll be the homeowners association will take care of those.
Okay.
And what we have them do is we have them sign agreements, and the agreements get recorded in the courthouse, and the agreements comply with the Stormwater Management Act that the borough has, and it also, those agreements essentially comply with the requirements for the federal and state permitting for those facilities. So it's a pretty formal process.
Okay. Since I'm aware of that process, I'm also aware that there are major stormwater issues on Arch Street, and I'm sure you all are aware of my concerns, especially, along with most of my neighbors have concerns, but my property is especially affected. So what I'm here to ask Borough Council to do is to table their decision. Right now, you don't have a preliminary plan. You have a sketch plan. Okay? Table your decision. Because right now, if you approve this, you're going to have that many more square footage of impervious on that back 1.6 acres, which is going to add tremendously to the amount of stormwater issue that you're going to have in this area. You're also going to be limiting, right now you have 9 acres that allow stormwater to recharge into the system, which doesn't run off because of the Schmelzley issue, okay? But that's all going to go away. And this has some pretty good slopes on it and has a lot of issues on it. I realize that there is a by right development ability to do this, and I know we can't stop that. And I've seen the plan. I understand what you're trying to do. I don't like the threat as a resident of being told that if we don't do this and Borough doesn't do that, we're going to have apartments. That's not fair to the rest of us. 2, I understand that your developer does wonderful things. I've seen properties that he's developed. I don't have a problem with that. I understand that if you approve this, it's going to happen. It is what it is. There's a big concern with the access to this, okay? Emergency access to this, residential access to this, and like my neighbor just pointed out, the parking. There's no parking, so it doesn't matter whether they're public path or not. You don't have a way as the public to get to it unless you live near it. Okay, so that doesn't really matter to me. I don't think it matters to most of us who live back there. We have other parks. Okay, so please table your decision. Ask this developer to go through all the stormwater calculations for both ways to develop it. The one with the 4 lots across the back and the one with the 49 lots across it. Ask them for a traffic study to see if it's even going to be safe enough to come out on DeLong Avenue. You don't have to make a decision tonight. You can gauge that decision on his preliminary plan. Because even though he's sitting here saying right now he's not going to give us apartment buildings, and we know that once this change is made, there's no going back. So I already have an issue with the borough maintaining a very big concern in my life, which is that stormwater basin on on Arch Street now. To say that all 100% of the stormwater will remain by DEP and EPA regulations on this site is bogus. Okay? I work for Upper Milford Township. We're dealing with an issue over there right now with a developer that doesn't play fair. Okay? He's draining all of his stuff. I know this is very important to what you're going to decide tonight, sir. Give me just a moment.
I know, but look, we don't need to talk about developments in other municipalities. That's not fair. That's not what we're here to decide.
I have a point, though. My point is, get those calculations. Before you make this decision, get those calculations. We learned the hard way, so don't do that to Emmaus Borough. Okay? With the slopes here, with the stormwater that comes down off this mountain, you have no idea right now if that sketch plan is going to hold. Those ponds could end up being 24 feet deep. And could 49 residents in an HOA be able to afford to maintain them? So now we're setting ourselves up for failure. Because that's my concerns and those are my questions.
Okay, thank you. Next, please.
Dee Barabo, some of you might know, I own property on Elm Street. Well, I gotta flip the page. My one question that I can ask while I'm signing in is, why was this area that you currently have zoned conservation residential, why was it initially zoned that? Now, do you want my mailing address, or do you want the address of the property that I own in the borough?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Do you want my mailing address, or the address of the property that I own in the borough?
The one that you own in the borough, please.
Okay, so my
Okay,
question...
ma'am, if you're looking for an answer from me, I can't tell you I wasn't here when your zoning ordinance was drafted. I don't know that.
Okay, well, I'll just
Anybody
tell you
council
what I
can tell
read
you.
on the borough website today, and that what I read was the reason that a piece of property is zoned conservation, it's because either the slope of the property is not able to handle the development like it normally would. So it gave like slope, traffic, and something else as the reason. So if somebody back in 1993, I think is when it was done, decided that part of the hill over there was not able to be zoned medium density, then they must have had a very good reason to do that. And I really encourage you guys to really take a walk back there and look at the site before you even make the decision to even take 1.6 acres and make it medium density. Because I think you'll find that I'm concerned that even these walking trails, it's very hilly. I don't know how you can even just take a look, take some time, don't vote tonight, look at the site, and see what they're trying to do before you make your decision, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I think there's another person in that row.
Sorry, I didn't finish signing in yet.
Take your time.
My name is Robin Barabo, and I live at 364 DeLong Avenue. And I gotta say, as my first borough meeting, you telling me that my bad eggs I gotta be happy with because you're gonna make them worth is really unsettling. I don't think it's fair to have him come in and pitch ideas like that. My main concern is with the traffic. That street, if there are people double parked, even if they're parked bad, you can't get by now. So what are you gonna do when you get traffic from what he's threatening, 50 plus townhomes, or the 49 proposed if you pass this through? Like Dee said, go up there, walk the site, do more research before you make this decision. And I understand that you're saying now's not the time to discuss traffic concerns, but if zoning decisions are made based off of things like slope and traffic, this is the time for that discussion. This is the gateway. This is a place to stop the decision and really stick up for the people that are there now and keep that area safe.
Okay.
That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Next row back. Anybody want to speak? Sir?
My name is Jeffrey Madison. I own the property that actually borders the rodeo property all the way down to the cul-de-sac. After hearing a lot of the neighbors' concerns, I hope Borough Council will do it in their best decision to make a decision that benefits its residents here. There's a lot of concerns here, talked about, water runoff, the traffic and everything like that. So I hope you can make a decision, at least to table it, get more answers, get back to the people, and explain what you just found out, because this is a big decision. Land here in the borough is there's not much of it anymore, okay? For me, I have a total of a little over 9 acres on the other side of it. And property is valuable. Open space is valuable. So hopefully we can keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in that row that would like to speak? Okay, last row. Anyone else want to speak? All right, that appears to be everyone.
Can we have more questions from council?
Sure, of course.
Like a follow-up?
No, of course you can. Council can follow up.
Mr. Buba, is the revised plan that you're presenting tonight have more impervious surface or less than? Because I'm looking at it, and what I'm seeing is it actually has less, not more. But I want to make sure that's true.
Yeah, I don't want to say this is a full engineered plan, but the proposed actually has less impervious.
Okay, I wanted to make sure I understood that, because me looking at it, that's what I saw, but I wasn't sure.
And my point was, I think the gentleman just said open space is valuable. I agree with that. And that's why when you just read an advertisement without knowing what's being proposed, I understand the emotion of that. I represent people who do that. And I want everybody to understand, there are times that residents can appropriately say a developer is making a threat. Very often, that's before the developer has bought the property, because they have an agreement that says if they get approvals, then they'll do these things. Let me make it clear. The developer bought this property. They spent money, and it's not a threat. The reality is they did not buy land to keep it vacant. And all I'm trying to suggest is that it could be developed right now. I was just making a point about the apartments to say, as much as you might like to do that, developers have rights too, and it's a compromise of those rights. And in this instance, everything people talked about really has nothing to do with the rezoning. Because all of the things that the traffic, the infiltration, the detention ponds, all of those things are exactly the same issues we would address at land development if I didn't take this chapter. I'm suggesting don't look the gift horse in the mouth, because it's hard to say we want to keep the conservation district and then say, well, we don't want anybody parked there to get access to it. If the CR is important, it's because it is used for open space. And we're trying to preserve it. If it's not important, then let the developer develop everywhere. I think it is important, and that's what we're trying to do.
Anyone else on council?
I just had a question.
Sure.
I heard many of the residents say about tabling the issue and also more factual data. Is that even something that you can even ask for at this juncture?
The procedure is that the ordinance will pop up during your regular meeting. As with any type of an ordinance, you can vote to table. Voting to table is a majority vote, has to be seconded, voted upon. There's no discussion on a motion to table. If it's tabled, it gets brought up at the very next meeting. It's a possibility. Council has a full range of possibilities.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
So if we were to approve this tonight and it goes through the next steps that you described to us, and there is an issue with parking potentially here, there's things in the future that can be done about that, yes or no?
Well, what happens, Chris, is that let's assume that council voted to approve this map amendment. The next step would likely be to seek the zoning hearing board approval for the special exception. And the special exception, there are a number of criteria that apply to townhomes and townhome developments. I don't recall all the specific criteria, but they are listed in the zoning ordinance. I can pull them for you quickly if you want me to read them. But then when you have the zoning hearing board approval, now you can proceed to come in with your plan, and I would anticipate in normal course the developer would bring in a fully engineered plan, and those fully engineered plans would discuss the details, for example, of stormwater management, street widths, parking. Typically with the townhouse development and driveways and garages, we're looking at off-street parking and issues such as that, as opposed to on-street parking. Doesn't mean on-street parking doesn't happen. So what I heard the concerns tonight were stormwater. That is a specific issue to be addressed in land development. And it's not just borough review. It's Lehigh County Conservation District review, Lehigh Valley Planning Commission review. I've heard traffic. That is primarily going to be a borough review issue, not a PennDOT issue or anything to that effect, because I understand these are all borough streets. I'm trying to think what else. We had traffic. We had stormwater. What were some of the other concerns, folks? Sorry?
Parking is definitely good.
Parking, I'm kind of including that within traffic, but parking and traffic would be borough issues.
Environmental issues, but I think they explain.
Recreational, how the recreational trails would be handled would be something that would be worked out in the land development process in terms of would the trails be dedicated to the borough, managed by the borough, would the trails be dedicated or left with the organization, but the homeowners association, but open to the public for use. Those are issues that get worked out in the land development process. So, the bulk of a development like this is handled initially with the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission and the developer usually hold as many meetings as are necessary to bring the plan in conformance with all of the regulations, and only when the plans are in pretty good shape do they come in front of Borough Council for action. So that's the process. And to the best that we can do as a planning commission and as a council, we apply the ordinances that we have in effect, and the developer has a right to expect that we apply the ordinances in effect at the time that plan is filed. So that's where we go with it, and how the process is probably a 4 to 6 month process.
So one follow-up question, no matter how we would vote tonight here, let's just say the traffic was a major issue here. I want to phrase the question right. If we would vote no and it'd have to stay the same, the developer could still do this and we'd have nothing to say on traffic, or we'd still have something to say on traffic in the future?
It depends, and I'd have to go and I'd have to look at your zoning ordinance in terms of whether the zoning ordinance for special exception requires anything on traffic. But traffic issues, all development has traffic.
Mm-hmm.
All development has stormwater issues, and so it's hard to say, well, there's a traffic problem here and we're not going to let somebody develop their land. There are going to be requirements in our ordinances that as to what has to be done. There will be parking requirements in the ordinance for new land developments. Obviously, we can't create access routes that maybe don't exist, but there are ways to work with all these. Lots of times with traffic, as a general rule, you look at what traffic is added in terms of peak hours, that people going to work, coming back from work, things like that, and you can analyze the impact based on those.
Attorney Dinkelwacker, I think what he's getting at, and Mr. Dufresne, I think the answer that you're seeking is this: there's two other opportunities. Even if you deny tonight, if he goes to a public a zoning hearing board meeting and he tries to do the townhomes instead, council can send our solicitor or a representative of the borough to express opposition or concerns regarding that rezoning, or for that matter, if you were to support it. The other opportunity that Borough Council will have is if they do move forward even if they get denied at the zoning hearing board and they move forward with their planning process for single homes or whatever would be allowed without special exception, ultimately you have the authority to approve that plan at the end of the day. So you would have your say at that opportunity as well. So there's two other opportunities where Borough Council will have something to say or have the opportunity to have something to say about the development or any proposed development that they have.
Okay.
Does that answer?
Yes.
So, just one question. So, just looking at these two plans here, so just to say that we deny the ordinance movement, they still can go ahead with this plan, correct?
They can go ahead with a plan. I don't know if that plan, fully engineered, works the way it showed, but yes, I mean, it's clear that a substantial part of this development is in the RM district, which allows townhomes. We allow single-family detached homes in the conservation district as well. This is not conservation in the sense that nothing can be built. The conservation does allow single-family detached homes.
And that's what the back end of
Yeah,
this
so
map
I mean, to the extent the plan certainly represents a theoretical design that's within the parameters of the zoning ordinance as it exists right now.
Correct.
In the end, does it get fully engineered that way? We wouldn't know till plans were submitted, but substantially, I'd say, looks to me like it can be done.
Right. Okay.
Yes, Wes.
Mr. Buba, what is I mean, if we said yes today, what's a realistic time frame that you think until you actually had shovels in the ground? I mean, I know you'd want it today, but I want to just get a gauge for where you're.
We seek special exception approval. I'd probably file that as soon as I would say maybe December, we'd be here for zoning hearing board for special exception approval. And then if that was received, I would expect that we would embark upon fully engineered plans in the first part of 2018.
Okay. And then once those had final approval, so sometime mid-2018 is a realistic time frame if everything moved as it's supposed to?
Yeah, I think with NPDES, it's probably closer to the third quarter of 2018.
Okay.
Yeah. But the land's not making the developer any money now, to answer your question.
Yeah, oh no, I mean, I understand that part of it. I just kind of wanted to get an idea of where you're at on this. And if Borough Council decided to take zero action, basically denying their request, applicant 2 is what you would probably be sticking with? I mean, applicant 2 is the one with the first one that you showed us that has that does not change the rezoning.
Yes, and we would not be dedicating the trail under those circumstances.
Right. Yeah. No, I understand that. And obviously, I sat down with you for quite a bit of time in our general administration meeting, and the one piece that I mean, maybe I must have just overlooked it. I don't think I remember it being that we were actually losing conservation area. I thought it was an even exchange. Has that always been the case?
Yeah, the even exchange was, it would look a bit weird.
Yeah.
But theoretically, we have no problem, calling conservation. It just look a little bit like spot zoning because you'd have RM conservation, RM conservation.
Right.
So we were trying to accomplish the same purpose by not rezoning that front part. Just because it seemed a bit awkward, but we have no concern with that. It just doesn't seem. I think you can protect yourselves just as easily through plan notes, and that's what we were trying to do.
Yeah. So I guess maybe the question then that came up there was, so in actual green space, is that remaining the same? Is that what you were saying was the trade?
The green space is actually larger in Plan 3.
Okay. So when we are changing, we are making, based on, the plans, assuming that there would be a development here, that applicant 3 actually has more green space. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And just let me say one other thing. You just don't walk into a municipality these days and say, I want to rezone conservation residential. You just don't do it. You're not going to get approved. That's why we spent time trying to demonstrate why it might make sense. And that's our whole point. And I know what that sounds like. You know, as I said, I've been to hundreds of these things. But that's exactly what we were saying. Rather than just come in and say, we would just like some of your conservation area to build towns on, what we've really said is, if you want that space and you want to do something neat with it, let us help you, and let us build some bigger townhouses on that area. But we got to get a little bit more space to do that. That's as simple as it is. There's nothing malicious about it. It's that simple. Staff is really smart. Your engineers are really smart. You know, they'll be looking at all of those issues.
Yeah. No, I mean, I understand that. I guess when I saw it in actual numbers here proposed this way, I mean, I know when we were at the general administration meeting that it was talked as an exchange, and so it really is an exchange. When you look at it by actual zoned districts, it's not. But when you look at it on actual green space per your proposal, it's an increase application 3.
We want note plans that would protect the borough in perpetuity because of the note plans that were placed on the recorded plans.
Sure.
And it must be maintained as open. It must be used for recreational purposes so that anybody who tried to buy in the future would know that that's what they were stuck with.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Finished? Yep. I think no other questions by council. Brent?
I'd like to thank our solicitor, Mr. Tinkelacker, for all the explanations for everything. Mr. Buba, also the residents, you brought up some very good points. That's definitely something that's going to be addressed in the zoning hearing. Well, it's not a hearing, but it'd be the proceedings at the zoning hearing board. I'd like to invite everyone to stick around for our council meeting, which will start as soon as we adjourn from here. And this actual ordinance will be addressed during that meeting. So with that being said, we're adjourning at 8:14.
No, I don't think we need a motion to adjourn. It's just a hearing.
So bring up your agenda for the council meeting. I'd like to welcome all to the Borough Council meeting, and please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. It's 8:15. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll start with Public Appeals Part 1. If you have a public appeal, please approach the podium, sign in, and you have 5 minutes for your public appeal.
Jesse O'Donnell, resident 1312 Pennsylvania Avenue. I have a couple points. One, I'd like to thank Mr. Pepe for his response on the retention basin for Arch Street. My big concern with this plan is the issue I've dealt with for the last 9 years at my own home, and the fact that the retention basin doesn't work properly. And I've asked 9 years ago for the fence to be fixed and for the gate to be fixed, and that has not happened, and now it's getting worse. So as you all know, you've all received those emails. I won't beat a dead horse, but I do want to enter this into the public record, because now that this is on the table as a proposal, my concern is where the stormwater will be going from those retention basins. So I will be at the zoning meetings for this, because I have to make sure that I protect my property, and if anything above a 2 or 3 year storm has flood waters running down through my yard, this may help in a short term, but in a long term, it's going to make more of an issue, because 49 homes are not going to be able to maintain those 2 stormwater basins long term. Okay. I also brought to Mr. Pepe's attention the concern on Pennsylvania Avenue. That stormwater basin on Arch Street, the overflow is an easement down an alley to Pennsylvania Avenue, and then down Pennsylvania Avenue to the stormwater basin, and then goes across Pennsylvania Avenue down Shimersville to the Liver Creek. You're going to create all this impervious, it's going to go into the stormwater ponds. When I look at the map, I'm seeing it go both around either side and into my Arch Street retention basin that the borough owns. So my concern is, 2 years ago, we brought to the attention of PennDOT, because it's a PennDOT street, Pennsylvania Avenue, when this exits, when these 49 homes exit along, they're gonna end up on a PennDOT street, okay? PennDOT said the sinkhole, the missing pipe, the issue was a borough problem. Borough said contact PennDOT. At some point, there was stone dumped in the hole, cold patch put on top, but the pipe was never replaced. Now, the sinkhole is opening again. I don't want to see more cold patch put in that. If you look at the pictures that I sent through, it almost looks like there's also a UGI pipe running through that was exposed. Now there is a second area that's also sinking, where that pipe comes out of the alley and down Pennsylvania Avenue. We have, all the kids going to the park coming in and out. We have all of, Veracruz fire trucks. We have Seedway tractor trailers. We have Impress tractor trailers coming through there. As soon as the Route 29 bridge gets closed, where do you think that traffic's going? Right down Pennsylvania Avenue. Okay? So at this point, 2 years of no pipe, I'm concerned about what's under Pennsylvania Avenue or what's not under Pennsylvania Avenue. So if we could make that a priority to find out, to fix that. I do appreciate the fact that I've been told that it would be put into next year's budget. The engineer is reviewing everything. My concern is if that stuff is not fixed and this goes in, it's going to be more of an issue. So I do thank council for their time. I do hope you make the right decision and at least get more information on this before you judge that ordinance, because I see a whole lot more impervious with 9 townhomes in the back end of that than 4 single-family homes. Thank you.
Ms. O'Donnell, I just want to let you know, your emails that you've been sending to us, all the council members have received them. We discussed it in our General Administration Committee meeting for probably a half hour. We looked at all the photos. We got the ball rolling. It's referred to our zoning, or our codes enforcement officer, our engineer, our
Public Works Director.
Public Works Director. So they are looking at those things, and we thank you for bringing them forward. Also, they are budget issues, so it may not happen as fast as you like, but it will be addressed.
Well, one of the things that we're going to be able to do, Ms. O'Donnell, is we're going to stick a camera, because our engineer had said that should be a 15-inch line there. So our camera should be able to go through there. So we can at least get in there and scope that thing and see if there's any visible deterioration, cracks, whatever it may be. And we can get that done this year. So that way we can look at it. If we have to put new piping in, we can at least see it this year and try to budget it for next year. So that is one thing with that. Now, I saw in one of your photos, because I haven't seen all these photos before. That definitely looks like a gas line. Now, when did you take, that was from 2015?
That was May 2015, and I had sent them here to the borough, and I had sent them to Terry Fenstermacher at PennDOT.
Okay.
PennDOT told me it was a borough issue. I had gotten an email or a phone call saying that it was a PennDOT street. Talk to PennDOT. So at that point, then stone ended up in the hole and the cold patch went over it, so I figured somebody had fixed it, but now that it's sinking again, and now that the retention pond is even worse, and now that this is proposed, to me, this is a huge concern. Safety for the residents, safety for whoever's going in there, but mostly all the stormwater that goes into the Arch Street Basin, that actually makes it into the Arch Street Basin, goes out that pipe and under Pennsylvania Avenue. So my imagination does really bad things with all that stormwater that goes under Pennsylvania Avenue.
What was that? Retention pond.
That's a little scary to me, especially with my kids coming out the driveway and sitting there on that macadam making a left-hand turn. Okay, with all the kids, everybody goes to the park, everybody does that, so that's a big concern. So I appreciate that I had first brought the Arch Street pond issue to the borough's attention back in April. 6 months later, we're here. I apologize that I did have to send it to everybody at Borough Council, but at this point, I really need to make sure that it's addressed. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else with an appeal? Hearing none. Does anybody have a community minute to bring forward?
I'll throw one out.
I was looking at you right away.
Well, Saturday night is the Emmaus Halloween Parade, and I'll throw Mr. Barrett usually says about his run, but I'm going to throw it in there since I'm talking about it. We have the run before. So it'll be a great night to be out in the borough, and we look forward to seeing everyone at the parade.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, there's no special presentations tonight. Reading of the minutes. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the council meeting minutes from October 2nd? Councilman Brown, second by Councilman Dufresne. Any corrections or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. There are 7 ayes. There are no decisions on bids. Communications, we received a letter from Craig Neely requesting reappointment to the General Authority. We received a letter from John Stover Jr. requesting reappointment to the Emmaus Vacancy Board. And we received a letter from Megan Reed, the Emmaus Main Street Partners Manager, with regards to the annual old-fashioned Christmas event. Does that just get referred to staff? That's the same, or is there anything we have to address?
I haven't reviewed it, but if there's an alcohol request, we have to.
Is there an alcohol request? So we'll refer that to Parks and Rec, or
it's on the park property, so yeah.
okay, I'll refer that to Parks and Recreation Committee. And the other 2 reappointments, we don't re-interview.
You can't address either one of those because of it's an
But
election.
we wouldn't re-interview anyhow, would we?
That's up to council.
All right, so that will be addressed next year. Borough Engineers Report, we have none. Solicitors Report.
Nothing at the moment, thanks.
Thank you. Unfinished Business Part 1, we have second reading of ordinance number 1158, an ordinance amending the Borough of Emmaus zoning ordinance by amending the official zoning map to change the zoning classification of 1.6 acres, more or less, tract of land forming a part of the property known as the Pennsylvania Avenue Rear, and identified by Lehigh County Tax PIN number 549420946925 space 1, from the Conservation Residential Zoning District to Medium Density Residential Zoning District. Is there a motion to approve ordinance